Our next talk is entitled, When One Mount Isn't Enough, Seismically Retrofitting a 2,000-Pound Scholar's Rock in the Bay Area. Vincent Avalos is a Mountmaker at the Asian Art Museum of San Francisco. He's a trained sculptor, painter, and lab technician who started at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art as a preparator, advancing to senior preparator in Mountmaker. In 1990, Vincent was hired by the Asian Art Museum of San Francisco as a Mountmaker to facilitate the implementation of a comprehensive earthquake mitigation program. In 2001, he trained and led a team of Mountmakers to remount and install the entire collection for the move to the new building in the Civic Center. Before I invite Vincent up here, should also say that any of the presenters that are physically here in the room presenting today, when you're finished with your talk, you can just stay up here and I'll come back up and facilitate the questions, but we need you near a microphone. So thank you, Vincent.
Hello, everyone. I'm Vincent Avalos from the Asian Art Museum, and first of all, I'd like to thank the IMF and everyone for this great opportunity, and just to say that to all my colleagues, I'm so grateful that to all the presenters and everyone who's doing this work. I've learned so much in the past few years from all the different presenters. I used everything that I've brought, not everything, but like many of the things that I've seen here, I've used in my own work, and so I feel like this job itself is a collaboration with a lot of my colleagues at the museum, but also the spirit is with everyone here. So this is this sculpture is called The East Wind by Artist Tianjin Ren, who's a Chinese artist, and it's actually it's very, very much reminiscent of this and inspired by scholars' rocks in gardens in China that were these limestone formations, and you can see many of them look very much like this sculpture, but it's actually his own abstraction, and it's for anybody who understands Chinese calligraphy. It's somewhere in here the characters for East Wind are in the sculpture. So why the East Wind needs an elaborate seismic mount? We design all our mounts to withstand the maximum credible seismic event, and that's how our building was also designed. It was re-engineered to take an event similar to the 1906 earthquake that leveled San Francisco. And that event, they're estimating it had displacements like over a foot or 2 feet, and of accelerations over 1G. And in order to facilitate this goal, the museum housed at the library building was placed on a base isolation system, and this dislocates the museum's collection from the most powerful seismic forces. The Ocean Plaza is the part of the museum that is out in front, and it's not on the base isolation system itself. So whatever's placed on there is going to feel the full force of the seismic event. This sculpture made of nickel has a mass of a little over 1 ton. And the shear forces calculated for the design event would not only overturn the sculpture, but would exceed the capacity of almost any seismic system I could think of. Because any one particular mounting system was not adequate, I've integrated several mounting systems, and this makes it so the forces are spread across several methodologies, ensuring that one system did not carry the full load of the anticipated event. So the 3 systems are an inner bracketing system consisting of 1-inch thick stainless steel brackets that hold the sculpture from the inside. And then they're very robust brackets, but the sculpture itself is made of nickel, and in some places it's only maybe an 1/8 inch thick. And so my worry was that even if the mounts themselves were strong enough, that if there was an event, it would deform the sculpture. So then I decided to add a post-tensioning mounting system to that. And there were lots of places inside the sculpture that I could attach cables to and things. And so I thought that would be a good idea. But as I'll demonstrate in a minute, I was a little bit worried that the cables wouldn't be able to sustain these kinds of forces either. And so because of those uncertainties, I also added a base isolation system to the pedestal. So this is a basic formula that I used, that I got from an engineer back in the 90s who did a study with the Getty and helped us with our study, engineer named Bob Nigbor. And I've shown this formula before, but I want to go over it again because I think it's very useful, and I think it's very simple too, that it's very easy to use. So here's the center of gravity, and it's at 60 inches. And the sculpture itself is 2,000 pounds. And so this is, right here, this is Newton's second law, and it's the mass times acceleration equals the force. And so that's, 1g times 2,000 pounds, but it's up at 60 inches. So we have to multiply that by 60 inches, and that gives us 120,000 inch pounds. And the other thing that we take into consideration is the overturning moment and the weight of the sculpture itself counteracting that. So we minus that 22 inches, and we get a force that the mounts will have to receive at 76,000 inch pounds. So as you can imagine, that's quite a load, and that's what worried me, so much about like how to take care of the sculpture. And the 1/4-inch cable that I found, the highest capacity that the cable could take was 1,200 pounds. And so I had to also think of ways to increase that. Again, this took like months of studies, and there was interdisciplinary expertise, a collaboration with conservation and other engineers and art handlers from outside. We used a company called Wobo, who was previously Ship Art, who helped us do a lot of the rigging and things for the sculpture. This is just, oops, sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. So this is just the basic shape of the system, and so we're going to get into more detail. But this is the sculpture here, and we're attaching it to a stainless steel pedestal, which is also attached to a base plate, and which will be sliding on a concrete slab. Now, when we're using, especially when we're using a base isolation system, we want to be able to understand exactly what's going to happen, because there are other things like resonance and eccentric movements of the sculpture that can't be anticipated. And so in blue is this entire system, and we want this blue area to work as one unit. So even though it's on sliding plates, we want like all these separate sections to act in unison, and so they have to be securely attached to each other. You can see here the Osher Plaza itself is on a slope, and so we had to actually add a leveling slab for the whole system to sit on. So this kind of just demonstrates, this is kind of what the brackets look like. This is a cross section. This is the sculpture here. And this is this bracket here in this shape. And it's bolted into this aluminum plate, which stands on top of this stainless steel sculpture. And one of the things that we have that was a consideration was that we used an aluminum plate. It was a half-inch thick because it was easier to handle, and a stainless steel plate like that large, we just didn't have the capacity to work with something that big in our shop. So we chose aluminum, but also because of that, we had to worry about, it's going to be an outdoor piece, so we were worried about bimetal corrosion. So actually we decided to do these bolts. I was originally going to thread them into the aluminum plate, and then we decided against that to avoid that bilateral corrosion. So we had to use plastic washers and sleeves to go through the sculpture and bolt it from underneath. So that little detail is changed. So like I said, in the post-tensioning system, we only the quarter-inch cable could only hold 1,200 pounds, and we could have gone to a thicker cable, but then it would have been too unwieldy to go all through the sculpture. This is a simplified section of the sculpture. There's all these little, not little, really very massive, I don't know what you would call them, like little connections on the inside that we could attach the cable to, so this kind of simplifies that. So I did this diagram, this kind of abstraction in order just for me to make sense of where the cables would be. So we put in this pulley system to, it's like a sideways block and tackle system to increase the capacity that the cable could hold. And so this schematic is the same thing here, and I just needed to do this to help myself get my mind wrapped around how this would work. And so this is, as you'll see a little bit later, so this is kind of a block and tackle trolley system where there's two fixed pulleys, and then one that can adjust in the middle as the cable gets tightened. So we're tightening the cable from the side here, and then this pulls the cable through all these pulleys and increases the load that the cable can carry. And this is a detail of what the trolley system is. And so this is the whole system here, and then there are these UHMW pulleys. And I wanted to use UHMW because the idea of a block and tackle system depends upon eliminating any friction. So the less friction, the more that the forces can be transferred to the trolley system. Otherwise, the force gets transferred to the pieces of hardware or to the art object itself. So this is a plan view, and so this is just a schematic of the shape of the sculpture and where it's being supported. The trolley system is going to go in this area here, and this is just showing the tightening mechanism. This cable runs into the trolley system, and so we work with the engineers at EQX Global, and we created this array of sliding plates that were going to be sitting on this concrete slab. Like I said, it needed to be put out there to level and make everything smooth enough for so that, of course, if they're on sliding plates and it wasn't level, it just, if there was, even if it could stand on there, in an event, it would just slide off. It's an outdoor public piece, and so we've had several sculptures out there, and over time, the pedestals keep getting damaged, and there's a very diverse urban population, and of course, the salt air from the bay and everything, and so we found this company called Richlight, and they make a composite that's used in building siding and also kitchen countertops and things, and so we use this to cover the mechanism that I just showed you. And this is just a detail of that. So this in yellow is the stainless steel and aluminum structure, and this is a structure that is like a facade, but it has to be able to hold up the weight of anybody who would want to stand on it or anything. And this is the Richlight structure. Again, it's somewhat to scale it in this direction and this direction here, just to fit the information on the page. This has been foreshortened, so this would be much longer in this area. And then this is like a plan view of how that pedestal structure gets put together. So this is at Wovo. So the first thing, of course, I had to do was to create a template. So they helped me lift the piece up, and we placed it down on some cardboard, and also I was able to get on the inside and make templates of the shape of the mounts that were going around it. And here's the one of the first templates, and I also used this large piece of cardboard. It's sitting on, you can't really see it, but it's a full-scale. Full-scale drawing of the pedestal is on these pieces of cardboard here, and then I could place the template on it to sort of arrange where all the different connections and things would be. And I also had to make several templates for different purposes because of the different parts that are being used. These are sheets of Delrin. I'm placing that template on there, and the Delrin is going to interface between the aluminum plate and the sculpture, so that there's not metal on metal grinding against each other. And so that's the Delrin cut. So this is the pedestal, and you can see here, like this is the cardboard we use, and this is beginning the fabrication, and this is towards the end of the fabrication here. We're starting to put all the different parts together. This is my right-hand person, Yu Teng, and he did a lot of the welding. This is a very ambitious project, but you don't have a lot of money at our museum, and we actually had to move into a warehouse to do it, and we didn't have a welding table, I'm embarrassed to say. So the genius of Yu Teng was we actually was able to put this together and have everything straight and flat without a welding table, which is pretty miraculous. Here's the Delrin on top of the aluminum, and this is us milling out all the different connection holes. Here is the trolley system I was talking about earlier. And so these are two large aluminum plates that the sculpture is going to sit on. And they're being connected by this L channel here, and then this is also by this L channel. You see this seam here, because it was hard. We couldn't get a piece of aluminum that big. And so this is also going to act as a receiver for the stainless steel pedestal. And so again, this has been painted, the stainless steel, in order to prevent the bimetal corrosion. And here's the trolley being attached. This is the tightening mechanism. And here's a little video showing how it comes together. So you'll see, like, these brackets are slotted, as you'll see, and there's going to be, when we go to install it, there's going to be epoxy putty between those brackets and the artwork to create like an exact form-fitting connection. So there wouldn't be steel grinding onto the nickel, and also there would be this amalgam between them. Even though it's hard, it's very it eliminates any kind of movement that there would be, and that's the trolley. And then this just shows the tightening mechanism. That pull right there is going to pull on the cable. So this is us lifting up the sculpture. Here is the assembly that we're going to lower down onto this here, and we've got the sculpture down on it, and we're going to start doing the connections. That's me starting to bolt the brackets under the piece. So I want to point out here, so it looks very messy, but this is like several layers, I think about 4 layers of polyethylene, slippery polyethylene film, and that the cables are pulling over that film, and there are different layers in order to so there's not a direct connection between the two different kinds of metal, but also to eliminate the friction and to have that cable easily slide around those parts. There's U-tongue attaching brackets. So this is out on Osher Plaza. These are primed and pressure treated lumber that got bolted to this aluminum plate, and this is what we're going to attach the facade to later on. And of course, this here are the receiver L channels. This is Volvo delivering the sculpture. This again, you can get a better look at the underside. And we had built into the piece, to the aluminum plate, like ways of from the top. So from the top and the bottom, we could reach in and get our hands in and connect the different parts of hardware. Lifting the east wind. Sorry. So again, here's the receiver plate, and it's being lowered down into these receiver channels here. now this is us. The sculpture is now bolted in place, and we're putting the facade pedestal over it. So it's very beefy, and that's because we're anticipating, we're going to have, we don't want people jumping on it, but again, it's public artwork, so we're anticipating it to be able to withstand any kind of interactions, human and otherwise. Here's the rich light, and we had it laser cut, but of course, even with templating and everything, there's always little adjustments that need to be made. So when we were putting it together, we had to do a little carving and shaving to get it to fit properly. Again, there's that hole I talked about earlier. It's us fitting the rich light around the sculpture. I want to point out here that this right here is the concrete slab, and this rich light plate gets pinned to the pedestal, but then overlaps the concrete slab here a little bit. And I actually tested these pins with a weight box and to see at what weight they would break at. So I wanted this connection to be strong enough to keep a person from moving the sculpture, but also weak enough so that once an event occurred, these bottom plates would break away and the pedestal would be able to move out of place. And so this is the piece almost finished. You can tell we haven't put in the side plates yet, but conservation is cleaning it off and then putting a wax coating over the sculpture. This is the finished, and then you can see here the concrete slab and the pins in place. And here's the finished sculpture. Unfortunately, because it is a public piece and people often jump on these things, and this looks a little bit like a jungle gym, they had us put this unfortunate barrier around it. But there's the east wind. And thank you very much for your time in this.
So I have more of a comment before the questions start. Your technical drawings are beautiful.
Oh, thank you
We're
very
so
much.
used to doing everything on the computer now. The drawings were amazing.
It's because I'm not very computer savvy.
Well, that's good for us. The drawing was beautiful.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Vincent. There's one question. Is this a contemporary sculpture?
Yes, it is. It's like I said, it's designed to look like not sculptures, but found Chinese scholars' rocks, and they're usually in. If you go to China, you'll see them in gardens, and they look very much like this. But it was the artist is Tianjin Ren. And he's a contemporary artist. Yes.
Thank you.
So, Vince, great mount. That's amazing. Could you talk a little bit about the sliding layers, the sliding plates, and what those were made of?
Yeah, they're stainless steel, and I wish I could. There's a company called EQX Global, and they create they have a proprietary sliding plate. But other companies, similar, there's companies in Japan and things that make these sliding plates, and they're originally used for moving warehouse work and moving cargo and things. But I can get you in touch with this company, but there are also other companies that produce these kinds of sliders. So it's not, and they're, they're they're not so expensive, but they're less, I mean, they're not cheap, but they're less expensive than, more elaborate base isolation systems. So it's like, it's kind of what we could afford. But it's also been elaborately tested too. So we've seen them on shake tables and things, and we've seen how they actually work, and so we feel very confident with them.
I have one quick question
Sure.
for you too. The trolley pulley system is amazing. Is that the first time that you've ever worked with a system like that?
That's the first time. Yeah, it was an invention. I mean, I think the Getty is in their post-tensioning systems. They've done similar things, and I think I came up with it because I was trying to figure out how to increase the tension on it, and then but I think also I was like remembering in the back of my head because of reading earlier papers and seeing similar things, and so yeah, but yeah, I was
impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a work of art in itself, I think.
I actually had a question about that cabling system. I was pretty fascinated by that too. That was pretty ingenious. But can you describe a little bit about where that connection was within the sculpture, and what was the cabling over? Was that a sort of internal armature, or how did that?
So
was
if
there
you
only
look,
one point?
if you see the Scholar's Rock, there's all these it has a lot of holes going through it, and the way it's cast, of course, it's not solid. So like those, it's hollow underneath with all these kind of other almost like tubes going through the piece.
I see.
And so I could reach up in there and go through those tubes to pull the cables over them, and I could find a place where they sat very nicely. And
So do you have more than one point where the cable was, or was it just really one?
There was just kind of one
Yeah.
area, but it was very massive. It was
Okay. Thank
it's
you.
a very massive piece.
Thank you.
How did you determine the amount of tension to put on that area?
We didn't have. I didn't put a tensioning thing on it. The thing is that I felt confident that we weren't going to overdo it because it was such a massive area that we're pulling it on, and also the cable itself. When we first tightened it down as much as we could, and then it was actually and thankfully. We attached it, and then because of COVID, it was about a year or so before we actually got to install it. And the cable was pre-stretched, but also going through all that stuff. Like over that year, it kind of had settled in a little bit. So fortunately, when we got back to it, I was able to pull another 1.5 foot or something out of
That's a lot.
out of that cable. So I was able to tighten it down a little more, which I was glad about.
So is this something you'll have to go back to every once in a while to make sure the tension is?
I don't think so, because it had time to stretch. It had time to like a year to stretch out. And usually, cable is pre-stretched over time before you use it. Or if you don't get pre-stretched cable, then it's important to spend time putting tension on it. And so. We'll see when we go to deinstall it. We'll test it out again and see.
Beautiful Mount, Vincent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have one more quick question, and then we'll need to move on. Go ahead.
So I'm curious about the movement of each of the systems and how they kind of work in conjunction with each other, and what type of actual movement that both allows for and restricts.
Well, the cabling system is to eliminate movement. I mean, I know it looks like a Rube Goldberg machine, but the idea is to make the sculpture and the bottom aluminum plate it's a post-tensioning, so we're kind of squeezing those two things together, and using the bracketing system. So even though it's cable, the idea is that we're stiffening. The intention is to stiffen that up. And so that was when I was talking about in the beginning about the binary system. It's like we have, a top. We've got the sculpture and pedestal system and the ground motion. And the idea is that if things were moving up here in the sculpture and pedestal system, then there would be too much eccentricity, and we wouldn't be able to confidently predict what those forces would do to the sculpture. So, like, the idea is that you create, and that's how our building was designed too. Like the building itself, it was very well built after the earthquake, but it was technology that was done over 100 years ago, and so. They stiffened the building, but then when we went to go put our own base isolation system underneath the old building, we stiffened the entire building. We created more shear walls and things to create a stiffer building, and then actually we put several kinds of base isolators underneath the building in order to tune it so that the engineers knew exactly. They created a floor spectra for us. So they knew exactly what accelerations would be in different parts of the building. They could calculate all that. So, and they could do that because they created a stiffer, structure on top. So they only had, like I said, it's a binary system. They can know that this is stiff and this is going to be moving, and then they can have an understanding of that. Maybe that's too much information, but
no, thank you. That sounded great. Much appreciated.
Thank you.